Welcome to Lord Bear Me Strength. This is the podcast where we ask God to bear us some strength, and then we use that strength to pray without ceasing, talk about beer, and digest the issues. Also, sometimes we quote The Office for your edification and our enjoyment, because we have freedom in Christ. Your Lisa and your Marge. Now, Lord, bear us some strength.
How are you doing, Marge?
I'm well.
Yeah?
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm a little frazzled now.
Yeah, why's that?
Because I just forgot half of our intro.
Yeah.
I'm ashamed of myself.
Yeah.
I helped write it.
You mostly wrote it.
And also David watched it happen in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Wait, who's David?
David is this guy.
What?
Who? He's the first dude that we've ever had on the podcast. You get the very
I guess Hobbs doesn't count.
No, he's not ever been interviewed.
Ah, okay.
No, but you're about to be.
All right.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of prepared-ish.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Oh,
I guess
well, it's too late now.
This
is happening.
Yep.
You volunteered. So.
I did.
Yeah. Welcome to David. David Rethemeyer is your full name.
That is correct.
I
mean, that's my first and last name. My full name is David Chris Rethemeyer Jr.
Just Chris, not Christopher?
Correct.
Really? I did not know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually that is my dad's name dad's first name is actually David.
Yes, I did know that.
And so my parents wanted to call him Chris David, but Chris David didn't really sound very good.
Oh my God. Wow. Hey, I'm learning stuff over here.
Hobbs, stop snoring.
Yeah.
Yeah, Hobbs is super rude.
Hobbs is so rude. So you're a junior? That's what you're saying? Cool.
Yes.
Yeah, how's that feel?
It can be very confusing, especially when we get mail. When it's just David Rethemeyer on the mail, it's,
Do you just arm wrestle for who gets to open it?
Occasionally.
Yeah.
It's very frustrating when like, stores don't let me put, like, a suffix or anything at the end of my name.
Why would they not let you?
Because sometimes they just don't have the field for it, or if you try to have a space in your last name,
well,
it doesn't
feels
work.
Like discrimination. Should write a strongly worded letter.
I should.
To Costco. When they will let you put Junior on your card.
There you go. I should do that. That's a good idea.
Fascinating.
What do you want to talk about, Marge?
I want to talk about David.
But first, how about we get some beer?
I want to talk about this right here. I wish we had a video portion of this podcast because David brought the
I'll
biggest
take a picture
bottle of beer I've ever seen.
Oh.
It is called a growler.
And this is a term I'm unfamiliar with.
Yes.
But it's beautiful.
So, yeah, I'm excited to potentially give you the two of you a little bit of beer education.
Okay, well, open this sucker and then talk to us about it.
All right, so this is a growler. It is a 64-ounce container. And no, you cannot have any hops, I'm sorry. But basically, if you go to like a microbrewery or a nano brewery, what you can do, because they typically don't sell like packaged or bottled beer, is that they will just pour one of these from the tap, and then they will seal it up so that you can take it home, and this will stay good in your fridge for about a week.
It'll stay fizzy? It doesn't go flat?
It will. I mean, I actually got this on Sunday evening.
Yeah?
So,
you've been drinking out of it ever since?
I have not. I have not opened it yet, so this is fresh.
Spin it around, let me see that label.
Let's see here. So, yeah.
Because I love this label.
Yeah. So this is from Old Bridgeview Brewing.
Yeah.
It is a nano brewery that is down on Front Street in Washington.
Beer me that beer.
Absolutely. And, it is a excellent brewery. Me and my buddies love going down there on a fairly regular basis. This one that the two of you will be enjoying. Marge, would you like to grab one? This is...
I'm sorry, you just called me Marge. He's never called me Marge.
Well, I mean, I figured that, like, this is just what the podcast knows you as.
This
so
is the environment.
I should adapt
I
to
just
it.
say, like, no one... Other, like, people...
Oh, sorry, I didn't think you wanted anything.
People have started to call me Marge outside of you.
Oh,
and it's weird now. And I'm like, please don't.
I'm sorry.
No,
this is your platform to say please don't.
Just
okay.
No. You could call
and
like
me and David.
Like this setting is okay, but like when I'm at my grandma's.
Yeah. Right.
No.
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
what is this beer? This is interesting.
This is a wheat beer.
Nice! He's been listening! I respect that. Good job.
So, the two of you have had a wheat beer before on this podcast. You had Blue Moon, which is one of my personal favorites if I can't get something like this from a local brewery. But this is a wheat beer. It has a little bit of a cherry flavoring to
There
it.
was something different. Have you tried it, Marge?
No, because I'm afraid of bubbles.
Oh, yeah, it was super fizzy. Now, that's called It Has a Nice Head, right?
Yes, that is correct.
I do not like the head.
It's okay, it can't hurt you.
It can, go up your nose, though.
I mean,
I just don't like the feeling.
Yeah, no, I'm just giving you permission to wait. I'm just interested in what you do think.
Yeah, this
Wait
is
for you.
When you're ready, Marge. Let us know.
This is a very good. I quite enjoyed this. Of some of the beers that they've had previously, this is a very good one. They have a lot of lighter beers right now for summer.
Right. It looked pretty light when you were pouring it. It's not dark.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess...
I know what words mean.
So this one's light. It's like... Not dark.
So
dark.
here's the best way I've found to describe like a light beer versus a dark beer. Think of it kind of like drinking water versus drinking coffee. Typically, whereas water you
What's the
can go
difference?
down a ton and it's super refreshing at a time. Coffee, you can do that. You can drink down a ton, but it typically is a lot better enjoyed if you just take it a couple of sips at a time.
You're going to
don't
feel
say.
weird afterwards if you've got some coffee.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if it's real hot.
So typically, most of the beers that you guys I think have had so far would be lagers. That's what all of your Budweisers and your Bushes and all that stuff are. Lagers are very, very light beers. That is why they are affectionately known by the name piss water.
Yes.
You can find some good lagers, especially
And now I don't want any more. Thank you.
But that's not a lager. That's not a lager. That is a wheat beer.
Very pale.
Wheat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once you go up from there, then you can find ales. Ales have a bit wide range of how light or heavy they can be. You can have your darker brown ales that are pretty heavy, or your lighter pale ales or amber ales that tend to be
Pale ale is just fun to say.
It is. It is. And then your really heavy ones are your stouts and your porters that will tend to have sometimes even a coffee or a chocolatey flavor.
Now, I do want to get one of those on the podcast here sometime because those are some of my favorites too. I've had some of those really dark ones.
Yeah. They're pretty good if you like that kind of thing. I'm not a coffee drinker.
I was going to say that is the way to endear me to you is taste like coffee or chocolate. So I'm just saying.
If so, you will like people if they taste like coffee or chocolate.
No, I didn't say anything about people.
Your grammar there was confusing.
Yeah, the grammar implied that.
But context. You gotta.
But context.
I'm gonna get a new podcast host. Sassy.
Here, we can start our own.
I'm sorry. I'm
Cheers.
so sorry.
No.
Yeah, but then the problem is
Drink
neither
your
of us
beer,
are
Marge.
to edit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, David, how did you start learning about beer? Just starting to go to breweries?
So a couple of buddies of mine, are older than me and have been drinking beer for a lot longer than I have. I think I've only really been drinking it for about a year now. But we've made a habit of going to a few breweries, on a monthly, maybe a little more often every once in a while basis, and just trying a bunch of things. So
that's a fun friend thing to do.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah.
At least that's what I've never done it, so I'm assuming it's
never
fun.
had friends.
Otherwise, yeah. Marge and I don't get out much. So
there you go. See, maybe sometime all the three of us we can go down to Old Bridgeview and you can try out some stuff.
Yeah, cool. How old are you now, David?
I'm 23.
Okay, I think I knew that.
How old are you now, Lisa?
Shut up. I'll take you nerds to go drinking sometime.
We can drive.
Literally old enough to be your mother.
No, you're not.
Yes, I am.
You would have been 15.
Yeah, that happens. I mean,
Yeah.
it would have been really sad, but it happens.
She's not wrong.
Drink your beer, Marge.
I did. It's good.
Yeah? I mean, more.
Telling me what to do.
That's
I can edit you however I want to.
That is
so
true.
Be
She
careful.
has all the power. I'll be nice.
Good idea.
We did not just have David on to talk about beer, although it is a bonus
Kind of
for
did.
sure.
It is an absolute bonus.
I've
learned a lot.
I am by no means an expert on beer. Like I said, I've only been drinking beer for about a year now.
Well, me too. So we're getting started about the same time.
Hey, cheers to that.
Cheers. Dink it, sink it. Mm-hmm.
Dink it, sink it.
That's a thing. Don't look at me like I just made that up.
I like it.
Thank you.
I like it.
Thank you. Yeah, what other plans did we have for David?
What other place?
Plans.
Oh.
Plans.
We had plans for him to tell us every of the secrets, right?
Every of his secrets. That was the literal reason that we had you on. So I hope you made a list.
I do have some written down here.
This is the podcast on which we divulge every of our secrets.
Okay.
So if you've been listening, then you know this.
I do know this.
Yeah, so you just have to keep up.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I'll try to.
Okay.
Starting alphabetically.
Let's see here. Aardvarks make me squeamish.
Hey, that's answering one of my questions I had for you later.
Not really. That was just like, you said alphabetical.
Yeah,
so
you don't like watching Arthur on Channel 9?
No, I loved Arthur.
Well, good, because it's one of the best shows ever made.
Yeah.
Until the last couple seasons, and then they're just... But before that, good stuff.
Yeah.
Why is there so much hostility right now?
It's the beer.
Beer!
Beer rage.
So, David, welcome to Lord Beer Me Strike.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So I guess I should start off by kind of telling the audience a little bit of how I know you two.
That's what I was going to say. That would make sense. Why did we invite you on here?
Why did
Some
you
rando
invite me
off
on?
the street.
Why did you invite me on here?
First
David
of all,
is my son.
mainly because of the voice. We just want to get that voice in.
Yeah, so today we have a guest on the show, and I just want to be the first to say, Morgan Freeman, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. It's an honor to have you here.
My thank you. I'm very thrilled to be on this very prestigious podcast. The Lord Bear Me Strength. I've been a listener ever since the first episode. So I'm greatly honored of all of the awards that I've won.
I just love hearing Morgan Freeman say the name of our podcast. I want that to be my ringtone.
There you go.
Lisa, why is David on the podcast?
Because I love his voice, man. I just wanted to hear more of it. That's not weird at all. For me
That's
to say
not the right answer.
No? Try again. Because I promised him that he could be the first guest when I told him that we had a podcast. It was a couple months ago.
I thought it would be
I made
more
a promise.
heartfelt or something.
No. No. It was just
That's okay. It doesn't have to be
he was
heartfelt.
there, and he was excited that I had a podcast, and I respected the crap out of that excitement.
I am excited for
Yeah,
you guys. This has
right?
been cool.
You have some experience with podcasts, so you get it.
I do. Yes. So. Yeah.
So how do you know us? Going back to that.
Yeah. So I was at church with both of you guys. Both of you I have been on the worship team with, and I feel like we've kind of had some bonding through fire on a few practices.
Yeah, brothers
for
in
sure.
arms. Yeah, we've seen some things.
And especially just the two of us, just over at kind of in our corner on the piano and on the keys, just
Exactly.
kind of commiserating.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's a special kind of kinship that comes when nobody else can hear anything you're talking about.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's
You're
true.
over there trying to figure out chords for keyboard and piano because everybody else can capo, and
Yep.
we're the nerds that can't,
Yep. It's true.
and they don't notice we're over there struggling. So
Mhm.
it's all right. We got each other, or we did, because I quit. Now you're on your own. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm making it. But
I believe in you.
thank you. I appreciate it. And Mallory, we kind of like grew up together for quite
Kind
a
of.
few years.
Still
glad
working on it.
I'm glad you know.
She was there.
Yeah. So we had kind of a friend group that we hung out a lot from church for quite a few years.
We were kind of friends.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely a period where, like, especially on, like, we were messaging each other on Facebook on an almost daily basis.
Yeah.
So
We were both pretty lonely.
yeah.
Not in a weird way. No, that sounds weird. No, I mean, like, we would video chat when other friends would and stuff.
And you were both homeschooled, so you had
Yeah.
that in common.
Both
Same
fellow
hours.
nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, no, it was good to have that. But,
Yeah.
yeah, and currently, I think the main interaction I have with you is that in our D&D group, I am the dungeon master. So you get to hear all of my ridiculous voices.
It's an honor.
I'm gonna need you to record that sometime.
The whole thing.
I would love to just know what that experience is like.
You could come hang out. Couldn't
No,
you?
Yeah.
no, it's okay. I'm not trying to invite myself. Don't read that into this. I understand you guys have a young adult D&D thing, and it's fine. It's great. Happy for you. I'm just curious. That's all. It's fine.
Yeah.
I will just
You're the
observe
one
from
not
afar.
inviting yourself.
Huh?
You're the one not inviting yourself, just so you know.
Exactly.
But whatever.
I know when I don't belong, it's fine.
I have a couple of clips that I could send you.
Okay.
From, when we were doing it online, I would record it.
Oh, like during COVID?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
And so, yeah, then
Well, there
I
you
have,
go.
I
That's
have a couple of
perfect.
clips.
Yeah, just
so
send me some
I can,
clips.
I can
That's
send you
cool.
some. But yeah, that's how I know you guys.
Okay.
Church.
Mm-hmm.
For the most part. And then we had some shared activities in between.
Mm-hmm. You guys more than me. I feel super old right now. It's like my earliest memory of you at church is you were like this tall. You were like 5.
Yeah.
You know, and I just thought,
5?
yeah, he's tall. I mean, he was this tall when he was 5.
That's
right?
like as tall as you now.
That has to be accurate. I feel like you were probably about 5 feet
I
tall when
have
you were
always
5.
been a vertically gifted individual.
Yes.
So.
I'm sorry. I'm a little bit jealous. Because, yeah, you were about as tall as me when I met you. So,
yeah,
no,
I mean,
just kidding.
If I would have been like, yeah, you guys were joined the church before we did, because I was about
Just
5.
barely.
Yeah,
It
a
was
little bit
about the
before.
same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought you were a cool kid.
Yeah, I enjoyed hanging out with you. I remember, I got piano lessons from you, and that was fun because I was classically trained for a number of years, but then they asked me to be on the worship team, and I was like, I don't have notes.
Yeah.
How
Whole different animal.
how in the world do I interpret this? And so I came to you. It was just like, hey, can you teach me how this works? And yeah, I think. I don't know, did we do like for about a year or so?
Yeah,
lessons?
it was something like that.
Yeah, yeah, I enjoyed that a lot.
We had a good time. Well, because I totally related to that struggle, because I too was classically trained, and then I had to figure out how to read chords to be on the worship team. So I wanted to assist you as much as possible in that struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, reading chords was so much easier.
Mm-hmm.
It never really, like, notes never really clicked in my brain.
Yeah, there's a lot more freedom, it
so
feels
much
like,
more freedom
in
yes.
what you can do.
Yeah. I don't like being restrained. That's why I didn't take well to notes. Squelched my personality.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand.
So...
I mean, I can start
Whatever he
divulging every of my secrets.
I would love that.
Okay. Yeah. So, I guess to just kind of give a little bit of context for me and my story, I was, as previously mentioned, I was homeschooled, and I am technically an only child. I have 2 older half-brothers who are 20 and 16 years older than me, respectively. So, I mean, I love them both and enjoy hanging out with them, but they're not what most people would understand as like a brother relationship, because I really didn't grow up with them at all. So, but yeah, I was an only child, homeschooled. I was very, very blessed to have 2 extremely intelligent parents who were able to assist me with my learning process. My mother had teaching experience, and both of them are gifted in teaching. So it was, I'm very, very grateful to have had a really good homeschooling environment as far as learning goes. And both of my parents, that is, were very intelligent as well. So that helped with just the genetics factor of I was able to pick up information and learn it fairly effectively.
It sure doesn't hurt. I kind of wanted your parents to both just, like, teach me, too. Like, a little bit intimidated.
Mallory, you got a little bit of that experience in that in sort of like, I guess, junior high / high school, we had a co-op group, and my mom taught particularly speech class. So,
which was fun.
It was fun.
Coming from a lady who's very southern. The one thing that stands out to me is her saying poem, because she says poem. That's all I remember. It was great. It was good fun.
I don't even remember these things. What's funny is that, so my mom grew up in Texas. My dad moved down there for work, and they met and got married in Texas. And then they moved back up to Missouri, which is where my dad's from originally. And so my mom's Southern accent is still present, but it's been tapered a lot. And so it's not nearly as thick as it used to be. It's not nearly as thick as her relatives who live down in Texas. There's like, it's very funny to like hear people comment on my mom's Southern accent, and I'm just sitting here thinking, you have no idea. Yeah. So, yeah, especially words like futon.
See, I could just have your mom come on and talk too, though.
Oh, there you go.
You know, she could read the phone book, and I would listen to that.
Yeah. So, was very fortunate to have both of them sort of raising me, and as an only child who was very intelligent, I was very independent. I learned very quickly that if I wanted to entertain myself when I wasn't actually doing school with my mom, then I needed to, find ways to, keep myself entertained. And so I figured out ways to do that, and it ended up just sort of developing a lot of independence and just sort of like, be able to be okay with being myself, and I think that's the case for a lot of only children, because I have met very, very few other only children who are not introverts and not fairly like independent, self-reliant individuals by nature. So
what would you do? Like when you had free time on your own, how'd you fill it?
Yeah, because I mean, here's the other thing is that not only was I the only child, but we lived about a 30-minute drive from Washington, like the main sort of civilization. We live south of Herman.
Yeah.
And so it is...
As I'd like to say, outside of the middle of nowhere.
It certainly feels like it. It is, a good distance from like where my friends were, because for the most part, most of my in-person friends came from church functions. So I didn't really have a whole lot of like, I couldn't just like go over to a friend's house. Typically, there was one neighbor who had a son that was near my age, and we hung out for quite a while. But other than that, it was mostly just me. So my dad being a software engineer for many years, that naturally got me into computers. So especially as a kid, he would just give me like old computers or like old phone sets and a set of screwdrivers, and I would just like take them apart and put them back together again. And that was a lot of fun. I still build computers to this day, and that is a ton of fun for me.
Good skill to have, too.
Yeah, it served me well. But, yeah, or then, I got into video games, and, I did read a good amount, more so in my earlier days of school, less in my later days. I'm only just now kind of picking back up my affinity for reading after many years of school and having to do lots and lots of reading for school. But
required reading is the worst.
I'm conflicted on my feelings about that, because on the one hand, especially for kids who don't naturally have an affinity for reading, having the opportunity to read a bunch of really good books when you're in school might actually get them into reading on their own, and that's awesome. But if you were like me and you already enjoyed reading, but then you just had to pile on a bunch of other books that you may or may not have found yourself interested in, then...
Feels like a waste of time.
Yeah, then it's just once you get done with all of your reading for school and then you have your free time afterwards, it's like, well, why would I read? Because I just spent several hours of my day doing that for school, and reading for just self-satisfaction just does not seem like the best way to re-energize myself. But yeah, and I think a few of the things growing up that reinforced some of those traits in my personality, when I was about 12 years old, my mom had a pretty serious health issue come up. Basically, she thought that she just had like the stomach flu and just had like really bad stomach cramps. It turned out her appendix had burst. And just because she is an extremely tough Southern lady, she was just like, it's just a stomach bug, it'll be fine. And unfortunately, it was not fine. And so it was pretty much about a year where it was just in and out between hospitals and procedures and stuff to address just the damage that did to her body.
Wow.
I hear that's pretty painful, Lisa.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
I remember that. I didn't remember what it was, but I remember when your mom was super sick. That's scary.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think that at that age I really processed per se how serious it was. Mm-hmm. At the time, I just knew that my mom wasn't like around nearly as much, that she was in the hospital with medical stuff. I didn't really fully process until later that there was one point where she came out of one of the surgeries and the surgeons actually said there was a couple times there where we weren't sure she was going to make it.
Dang.
And
wow.
So
did she like still homeschool you?
Well, that was the thing, is that fortunately it happened at a point where she had like gotten all of my lesson plans and my curriculum together, but basically I was schooling myself at age 12, which I fortunately was able to make it through for the most part, but I think that reinforced even more that like spirit of self-sufficiency, self-independence that I had, and in a lot of ways that was a good thing. That helped me a lot in quite a few areas of my life, but it also had some consequences down the line of just like that's how my personality developed. That's how just I ended up learning to adapt to the situation that I was in. So
yeah, that's hard on a kid, like at that age especially, like just for a parent to kind of disappear, or it's like your whole foundation gets shaken.
Yeah. Well, and especially in a homeschooling environment where my mom was
everything.
The primary teacher, and my dad was working at the time, and he was really busy with work, and between being busy with work and trying to take care of mom as much as he couldn't be around a whole lot to help me out with stuff. So
right, you're just not exactly the focus at that time.
Yeah, which is totally understandable. They did everything that they could, and the focus was on getting mom better. It's just that's kind of how a lot of what ended up shaping me at that age. So and through that, part of what I mentioned earlier was that I didn't have a whole lot of like in-person community that I could get on a regular basis, and so a lot of that I developed through online friendships. And so that was to sometimes just by connecting with people who I already knew in person from church. Like I mentioned, Mallory, we messaged a lot back and forth, and I really appreciated that. I have some friends that I made online, like playing video games, that I still talk to this day, who are really cool. But at the same time, there were also several friendships that ended up getting created in that process that I did not recognize at the time, ended up becoming very toxic. And especially online, it's very hard to diagnose that, because I had learned, what bullying was, just, from, bullies like push you around and call you names and whatnot. I didn't really learn that bullies can just sometimes be friends who are narcissistic. And friends who just make you feel less than for not doing what they're wanting you to do. And I didn't really realize that manipulation was a form of bullying that I had to be aware of. And so that was something that like I didn't even recognize was wrong at the time. There was a part of me that recognized this kind of doesn't feel great to have this happen, but I guess this is just how people act. So even worse, I ended up kind of adopting some of those tendencies. And especially if you're an naturally intelligent individual, adopting tendencies of narcissism comes very, very naturally. And so that happened a lot in that period.
Starting about when you were 12?
Around that age. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then what happened?
And so once I graduated, I finished up with my high school curriculum at age 16. And then I immediately enrolled in this program that we had heard about at homeschool conventions called College Plus. And which is now known in its current form as Unbound.
No plug.
This is called foreshadowing. But it really suited my learning style, especially at the time, because it was very, very much self-study, self-guided study, where essentially the majority of the credits that I got were doing credit by exam. So I would just go and find as much online resources as I can about, like, early Western civilization, for example. Just find as much resources as I can. I would study it for a few weeks. Then I would go in, take a test. If I passed, I got credit. And so it suited the way that I had figured out how to learn pretty much perfectly.
Just cram it in there, take the test, move on with your life.
Yep.
That's how I do it.
It's like stocks. It's like pump and dump, but with knowledge.
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's how I got through college.
Yep. That can lead into a whole other rant on education that I'll save for later. But...
Yeah, we'll have you back.
Yeah. So, but aside from it suiting my just my learning style, there was also a community there, and so I got to make some more, like, actually really positive connections with people online through regular video calls and Facebook groups and things like that were really helpful. And I also got to go to, during the time I was a student, 4 different in-person events, all of which I really, really appreciated and really kind of made me feel like there were other people who were like me, who were ambitious and who were ambitious Christians, who were self-guided and were wanting to do cool things with their life.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate being able to do that. And then, so I finished that program at age 19. And I decided at that point I wanted to go straight into grad school. I had graduated with my bachelor's in business administration, and my career interests evolved a lot over that time, and I decided that I actually really enjoyed, like, business management and economics and things like that. So we had the opportunity to put me into grad school. So I went to Missouri S&T down in Rolla. I did a semester online, but then the plan was that the fall and spring semesters I would do on campus, because I knew a couple of guys down there that were good friends of mine that had a room there that I could stay in, and so I could actually go down and be on campus. And I think that period of my life is one where just, I think a lot of the events that really have shaped me recently kind of happened, a lot of things. And to be clear, it's not all, like, bad things necessarily, just a lot of circumstances came up that kind of gave me a new perspective. And not in the sense of send your Christian kid off to a non-Christian university and then they suddenly become atheists type of way.
Right.
Not necessarily that. So I think one of the first factors was that the 2 guys I was living with, one of them was a friend from church, and we have very similar personalities. We get along great, still do to this day. The other friend that was there, the other roommate, was a buddy of his who I'd hung out with a few times, and he's a great guy. I still love him, but he had a very different personality from me, and he was not a Christian. And he was also very, very intelligent, and he asked a ton of questions that I really didn't have a whole lot of good answers for about my faith, about Christianity, and what I believed. And I never really doubted the truth of my faith. I never doubted my own understanding. But the way I viewed God was starting to change, whether I realized it or not. Just not necessarily even just straight up because of the questions I was getting asked, but just how I was going about life and how I was beginning to just understand how life worked. And so, as is common in lots of young adults' stories, there was a girl around this point, and yeah, we had gotten to know each other online, and we had been talking really, really consistently for a long time, and we ended up getting the opportunity to meet up in person on a few different days, and basically fairly common scenario. I really liked her, but she just had a lot of emotional baggage and a lot of just really hard life stuff that she was dealing with. So regardless of whether or not she was also interested, it just was not something that she really even had the capacity to reciprocate at that time. And I did not have the emotional intelligence to really understand that, unfortunately. And so I hung on to the possibility of a relationship for a really long time, for probably about a year, where it was just, I was trying to see if I could make something happen, and then it just wasn't, and it was basically just back and forth of that, and that was really, really messing with my emotional state, because I just didn't really have the clarity to understand my situation and how it was happening. And yeah, so that was another factor that contributed to kind of a lot of the change that happened there. And so towards the end of school, I was doing really well. I succeeded pretty well in classes, despite having done mostly home and online education. I did pretty well in the in-person classes. At that point, I went to the career fair, and I was getting interviewed by a lot of really big, like, business consulting companies and things like that. In the back of my mind, I was still thinking, though, that it would be really cool, and I would kind of like to do my own thing and to have a lot more of, like, an independence. At the time, I was doing, like, marketing and social media for several small businesses in the area, and I really loved doing that. But that wasn't making a ton of money. So I figured, well, I probably should just go ahead and try to get a job here, and, that's going to actually pay pretty good. So I was in the process of getting all these interviews. I was, looking in good shape. And then the thing was, I was going to be graduating and looking to get into a job in spring of 2020.
Oh, no.
And then COVID hits.
No job for you.
Nope. So everyone moved back home, and all of the classes moved online, and everything went remote, and basically all the companies were just trying to figure out what the crap was going on, and so no interviews, no job. And so the school portion of it, fortunately, wasn't a huge adjustment for me, because I had done pretty much my entire undergraduate college career online, and so I was actually fortunate enough to be able to kind of like help some of my classmates through the transition and be in that position. And you were still
taking classes too?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, just the classes I was taking along with my classmates, because they were originally in person, but then they moved suddenly to online, and so a lot of my classmates were really, really thrown off by that, and were just,
a lot of people were scrambling to figure out the tech side of it.
Yeah, students, teachers, everybody was,
right.
And so I was kind of in a unique position where I actually
in high demand, I bet.
It was
bring in the nerds.
Well, I mean, it was a school completely full of nerds.
Oh, well,
so there's no shortage of that.
But even there, you kind of rose to the top.
Yeah. I was glad to be able to be of assistance at that point. But yeah, really with COVID, that was about the point where I started to realize there was a problem with just like my own mental state. I think I had kind of started to recognize over the couple years prior, especially when I was like starting to get into grad school and I was just really pushing myself a lot, sort of feelings of depression that were kind of seeking in, and especially kind of around COVID, as when a lot of that came to a head. I remember there was especially just like one point where there was one evening before like lockdown and COVID and everything that I was just like talking with some friends just like one evening, and then someone like said something like somewhat critical, which wasn't a huge thing. Normally just would have taken it in stride. So they said that, and then I went to bed and just completely just was paralyzed. And I was just sitting there. I just completely was breaking down emotionally, and I just I literally could not move I was just like laying there, just sort of looking up at the ceiling, just trying to understand what was happening.
Wow.
Really. And like all I can remember thinking was just like, God help.
Yeah.
Literally was just all I could think at this point.
Wow.
In hindsight now, I can see that, especially like at that point and then going into COVID, I really didn't have a whole lot of close friendships. I had a lot of what I would say were friendships of convenience, where just I would be friends with people who were just around me. And that, I've just had shared activities with, but I didn't really have a whole lot of purposeful friendships where we were actually, like, checking up on each other.
And you can call when you're freaking out.
Right,
yeah.
Right. I did not feel like I could do that.
Wow.
And, I knew in the back of my head that I could have done that for somebody, but I just felt like I shouldn't, because there was a part of it where I knew that, it could be an inconvenience to them, but there was also just a part where it was like, no, I've got this.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just sort of that independent spirit of, no, I should be able to figure this out. I should just be able to man up, suck it up, and work through it.
I want to give you a hug.
I know, I am going to need those Kleenexes, dang it. I mean, you're talking about how we both felt at the same time, I'm sure there's a lot of people going through the same kind of thing, but that's kind of what COVID did to a lot of people, is just like break us. Yeah. And that's kind of where you start to realize where your issues are. Yeah. And it was just piled on top of, like, I also had just like, my relationship with God at that point was not very good. I knew God was there. I just didn't feel like he was really with me. God was someone I understood, not someone that I really related to personally. And I knew that wasn't true. I knew that like a relationship with God was so important, and I knew so much about God. I knew all of the correct theology of like how to process through this. It's just my knowledge did not translate to belief. Was where I ended up having this break, where I knew lots about God and who he was, but I wasn't really translating that. That wasn't affecting my life. Yeah. I wasn't really understanding that this was for me. I think there was a part of me that was just kind of learning this and thinking, oh yeah, for people who are actually like struggling with stuff, then this is helpful, and I can just do all of the right things and I can be okay. And that wasn't what was taught at all. Like, I knew that for a fact. I knew that wasn't the case, but that's what I believed. What I knew to be true was different than the lie that I was believing. There's a difference between that. You can know the truth and still believe a lie at the same time.
So absolutely. Why do you think you were believing the lie more?
That's a good question. I think it was just, that was just my natural tendency. It wasn't, trying to develop a relationship with God was not natural to me. And I figured that because it wasn't natural to me, it was just something that I didn't have to prioritize as much. I figured just because of how I knew to learn, if I just learned as much as I could, then I could be okay. And that, a relationship was important. I knew that fact, but it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to put a ton of effort into necessarily. I figured that I was okay. So I think it was just believing that I had it under control. Just figuring that I could just be fine if I just like powered through it and just push through just with my own self-discipline. I could get through it, but
that's really good.
I mean, it didn't feel good, but so it maybe just like it pointed out a lot of like unrepentant sin in my life as well, that was just like going on just like in friendships and just in the ways that I was thinking as well. And so I don't think that there was ever really like one specific like awakening moment for me. I think I just remember sort of just a point where I kind of realized that God had more for me. That this is not all that life has to be. That I don't have to just be like struggling to get out of bed in the morning because nothing matters. That God has things in store for my life that matter, and to get to that, he wants me to get to that place, and there's a journey to get to that place that he wants me to go on. And so I definitely didn't just like suddenly figure everything out at first. It was more of just a realization of, okay, God has more for me. How do I get there? I don't even know necessarily where to start. And I think one of the first things that I did was I just like started talking to people about it. I didn't go to therapy, and when I say that, don't hear me saying that I don't think that therapy is the right option, and by any means. It's just not how I ended up going about it. I think therapy is a really great option for a lot of people. It's just not what I ended up doing.
And during COVID, it was hard to even make that happen.
Right.
Not much of an option.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And so I ended up just like talking with a couple of like mentor figures in my life who I just kind of just like dumped all of my just what was going on in my head about. And there was a part of me that I knew, like, this is the knowledge and the belief disconnect again. I knew that they would be supportive of me, and that they would be okay with like listening to all of this. Yeah. But there was also like a part of me that was believing, well, they're just gonna think I'm a loser now. And I knew that wasn't true. Right. I knew for a fact that wasn't true, but
that voice will try to convince you.
Yeah, and there was just a point where I finally said, you know what, I just need to go for this. Yeah. And it was a blessing that I found some people who legitimately just said, hey, what you are going through is, it's not God's best for you. We want to help you to get to a place where you understand what, how much God loves you and cares for you and wants you to have a better life. Yeah. And so
well, thank God they were able to be helpful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know that's not something that
it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah, but I'm very grateful that I did have that. And in addition to that, there were also just like some really practical things that I started doing that one of them recommended to me, that at first I heard him say, like, you should start being more physically active. And I thought, how is that gonna help? Like, how does that fit into all of the stuff that I am feeling and trying to process right now? But okay, so I didn't like go to the gym or anything. I just like started doing like body weight exercises, and more recently, like, I've gotten into running. I'm running basically like 2 miles a day at this point.
Good for you.
Wow, I did not realize that actually really helps.
Right? It's like one of the easiest things to do, and it's like one of the last things that we tend to think of.
Exactly.
But I mean, that's kind of what like my family is learning too right now. The endorphins and all the good stuff that can happen to you when you start moving around more. And especially if you're getting fresh air and stuff at the same time. God wants this for you. Like he designed us to be in movement and, experience it. Oh yeah, here, I'll take a refresher. So good. Well, I'm glad that you discovered that. Because I know the effects of that can be hugely helpful. So yeah, exercise was something that I did not recognize couldn't help until I actually started doing it and realized, hey, this is actually super helpful. And there was also a part of me that at the same time took an unhealthy twist to it, where I assumed, okay, well, I need to be exercising. That means that I need to like really be like
working out so that I can get like, you know, I can look more manly and
ripped.
I was looking for that, especially at the beginning, and I was kind of gauging my success off of that, which was not healthy at all.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to figure out that no, it's totally okay to just like do exercise, and even if you like basically have no external change, like
Right.
I can recognize that I am healthier just physically, even internally, you know, and externally and mentally too, is that it benefits all of those things. Like one of the biggest things is that I sleep so much better because I'm actually tired at the end of the day, because I don't have a physically intensive job, and so I wasn't really like physically straining myself at all.
Yeah.
And so that was hurting my sleep schedule.
Yeah.
And so actually doing that helped me to sleep so much better, and being able to get to sleep at night really helped me to have less time where I was just sitting up late at night wondering what the meaning of everything was.
Right? Nobody wants that, so go jog.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. I'm glad that worked out for you.
Yeah, that was one of the parts of it, and so I had a couple of mentor figures I talked to, and I also just started developing more purposeful relationships. That was one of the things that I first recognized I was missing, is that I just need friends. I need friends who like I can actually like really talk to
more
about
than
this
surface
kind of thing.
level.
Yeah, more than friends who are just like out of convenience, you know. And fortunately, like a lot of like good friends like from church that you know, once I started asking them for that, it turned out, hey, they were looking for the exact same thing. So
who knew?
I know. So that's been a really, really great thing to develop, and around the same time, that's kind of when I started recognizing, wait a minute, something that contributes to how I think about the world so pessimistically is the fact that I'm still friends with several people who are extremely narcissistic and toxic. I shouldn't be friends with them anymore, which was a really hard thing for me to reach the conclusion of. But especially as I was starting to develop more of those healthier friendships, then I was able to look at some of those other friendships and realize, wait, this isn't what, like, normal good friendships are supposed to be.
Right.
Like, I shouldn't be, like, feeling down on myself after talking with a friend. That's not how this should work. And so I ended up just kind of having to conclude some of those friendships. And that doesn't mean that I don't care about those guys anymore. I care about them. It's just the best thing for both parties at that point was just to cut it off. And
Margin, I know what the term for this is now. It's having boundaries.
Yes.
That's healthy boundaries, David. Man, I wish I'd learned that when I was your age.
Yeah. So that was a whole new revelation that has really been helpful.
Yeah.
And
Well, look at the head start. Now you can recognize a healthy relationship from an unhealthy one. The rest of life will be smooth sailing.
For some reason, I don't think the rest of life will be completely smooth sailing.
You've got the secret now, so congratulations. It's all over.
42, that's right. Yeah, and I think just like in those healthy relationships, just being open to just talking about what I was like thinking and feeling without like thinking that I was going to be thought less of. Because I saw the way that I was feeling and the things I was struggling with, and I thought less of myself. And so I assumed that if I told other people about it, they would feel the same way. And that was completely not true. That was not something... I knew that wasn't true, but it wasn't what I was believing. And so once I actually started to see the truth of the fact that, wait, I do actually have friends that are okay with the fact that I am a screwed up person because they're screwed up people too. And they are just as much here for me as I want to be there for them. And then I started to actually believe the truth that we can actually have good, healthy community. And that was, I think, one of the biggest turning points for me.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I am so glad that you found that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am extraordinarily grateful. I have gone through a lot of those hard experiences, and even more recently, I'm still very much learning. Even more recently, I've had a couple of life circumstances happen where I've been really disappointed about things not going the way that I was really hoping for and the way I was working towards them. And I was sort of feeling, to an extent, like that spiritual disconnect. And what one of my mentors helped me realize was that I was basing how I felt about my relationship with God on how my circumstances were going. I was thinking that if my life is going well, then that means that my relationship with God must be good. And if my life is not going well, then that means it must be bad. And I knew that was a lie. I knew mentally that is completely untrue. If someone said that to me, I'd be like, well, yeah, that's obviously not true.
That's a type of prosperity gospel.
Exactly. It's legalism.
Yeah.
And
you can know it, but it doesn't necessarily affect your heart.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily affect what you actually believe and how you look at life.
Yeah.
And, like, even more recently, it's just been a process of just recognizing that, like, how well or poorly I feel that my life circumstances are going does not mean that God loves me any less.
Right.
God loves me so much more than I can understand, and he wants the best for me, even if my circumstances are not necessarily the most comfortable. And just learning that just God works through extremely uncomfortable circumstances, and he is still good, and he still loves you through that.
Preach.
Yeah, so that's just sort of like a kind of a testimony of where I'm at now. And on the more practical life side of things, after interviews and whatnot, COVID fell through, I just went and did full-time my small business consulting. And I just sort of made my own business and started doing a bunch of content marketing for my business. And that's just kind of how I started developing a bunch of skills, is that, well, even if my client load is kind of low right now, then I can just kind of start doing some of this stuff as practice and to promote myself. And so I was, I knew that I was just sort of practicing and that it wasn't necessarily guaranteeing success, but I was, to an extent, getting kind of frustrated that I wasn't seeing more growth in kind of what I was just talking about. So I've been keeping tabs on Unbound, and then I just kind of was watching and seeing. I noticed that in 2020, the ownership of the company changed to where the owner was actually a guy who I had volunteered for when I was a student. And so then I just decided to reach out when I saw that they were doing some staffing changes, and I said, hey, no idea if you guys are hiring or not. Actually, before grad school, I had asked if they were hiring, and they had said not right now. But then I reached out and asked again, hey, notice that you guys are kind of doing your own thing. It's super cool. Here's kind of what I've been doing. Don't know if you need any assistance or anything. I messaged this to one of my other friends who had started working there. 2 days later, the CEO called me and was just like, hey, so actually, yeah, we are actually like needing somebody with pretty much your skill set. So,
awesome.
God was just like, yeah, that door that you just kind of were looking at over there in the distance, I'm just going to kick that wide open and just shove you through it. So, yeah, that's how I started working for Unbound. And that has been a tremendous blessing because it is... I hate the term dream job, but it's as close to that as I feel like I could get, because I am working with a phenomenal group of people who are pretty much exclusively like chasing after God, who are extremely driven and passionate. It is work that is online and it is self-driven. There's no like set hours. So basically, it's basically you're adults. We're gonna treat you like it. Make your meetings, get your work done. Other than that, don't care where or when you work.
Go to the brewery with your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Show up at a podcast.
Exactly. And so, yeah, it was super cool.
Well, that's ideal.
I've gotten to pour back into students who who are just a few years younger than me, And I've gotten to do a lot of cool things for work. So I handle a lot of their paid advertising now.
What's your actual title? Do you have one?
So, I mean, it's a startup. So the fun thing is that you start off with one title and role, and then it ends up just sort of evolving over time, and you end up doing a bunch of different other things. So my title is Senior Marketing Specialist.
Oh, okay.
And so that was primarily with running paid ads, but then their previous podcast host had just left, and so I came onto the first meeting, and I hadn't talked with a bunch of these people in a long time. The entire company is run by former students, and so
that's cool.
I came on and was just introducing myself, and they were just like, "Man,
that guy on the podcast.
Get this guy on the podcast." And so, yeah, I ended up...
it's like the current way of saying you've got a great face for radio. People tell you need a podcast. It's just you take it as it is. Yeah.
I do. And so, I have either hosted or produced over 30 episodes now.
Wow. What's their podcast called that you're on? You go ahead and plug it here.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is the Be Unbound podcast. You can find it on pretty much all platforms where you can find podcasts. It is also on YouTube. We do a video podcast, so you can even watch us interviewing people online if you want. But
kind of do want.
Yeah. And so, really, it's more focused on what we as Unbound do. And our mission is to equip young adults with the skills, the network, and the knowledge that they need to go out and succeed in the real world, no matter where they go in life. Basically, what we operate on is, we say that we operate on a questions-based paradigm. See, I'll get into my education rant now. So, most of traditional education for the past, 100 years or so has been based on an answers-based paradigm, where the more answers that you know, the more knowledge that you can pack into your head, the better off you are. Because, knowing and having information in your head is the best way to go about actually getting tasks done.
To focus on book knowledge.
Yeah, just having a lot of knowledge, making yourself an expert was the best way to succeed in life. And then we got the internet, and information, knowledge has become completely democratized. Anyone can look up just about anything. Anyone can learn just about anything.
Instantly.
Just about instantly, exactly. And so now, the previous advantage that people had of having lots of knowledge is completely gone.
Yep.
And so what we operate off of is now the talent that is going to set people apart and give people an edge is how good of the questions can you ask? How good are you at asking the questions that will get you the information and the skills that you need to operate well in the real world? And to, as we say, quickly and effectively master complicated information. That's just, no matter what career field you go into, basically. Sure, there's still quite a few where you need specified knowledge, but in a lot of jobs, in a lot of different, business sectors, basically just the better you can communicate, the better you can learn and ask good questions, the better off you're going to be. And so that's our educational model. And so on the podcast, we have several ways that we demonstrate that and we talk about it. So we sort of have 3 shows that we do. So the first one that I host is called Unbound Talks, where it is me, our CEO, and 2 of our senior staff members who are just kind of breaking down more in-depth our educational philosophy and some of the practical ways that we go about actually teaching that to students and some of the motivations behind why we do things the way that we do them. Then we have Unbound Conversations, where we bring on somewhat higher profile guests who will kind of give their perspective on some of the things that we talk about, and will kind of inform a little bit on some of the topics that we think are interesting and the things that we talk about. And then there is Unbound Pursuits, which is where we bring on students who are either current students or alumni who are pursuing particular career fields. And it's, to an extent, a demonstration that, hey, you can go into whatever career field you want, but it's also just a cool experience and a tool where if someone, for example, is looking to get into writing, we have a couple of episodes where we have Unbound students who are published authors who are on there, and you can listen to them talk. So.
Yeah. Gonna have to look those up.
Yeah. So, the podcast is one of the roles that I ended up getting into almost by accident, really.
Yeah.
We didn't really think that was what I was going to be ending up doing, but it's been the one that I think has been the most fun for me.
Oh, I bet.
So.
Yeah. Wow.
So
that brings us to current day David.
That brings us to current day me.
Okay.
I am very much, still a work in progress where I'm still learning a lot of this stuff, learning to believe what God's word says, and just seek after Him above all things is where I'm at. And so, yeah, I think that really kind of goes into what I see the two of you talking about on this podcast and why I've appreciated it.
See, this is why I wanted David as a guest. I knew he got it. He captured our vision.
Definitely wasn't just because of my voice.
It wasn't just that at all, or that you were just there.
Is a heartfelt reason.
Yeah, but and so I think I've just seen that, especially with what you guys are talking about, is that we as Christians often just will know lots of true things, but it's not often that we really understand how we believe it and how it affects our lives. And we can be, unfortunately, very bad at listening to each other. And that's why I think things like this are important, is that it's been really cool for me to be able to listen to both of your perspectives on things and just hear how both of you process on certain ways that I never would have thought about before. And sure, there's a good chance I may disagree with you on some things, but that's okay. That's okay.
It'd be weird if you agreed with us on everything.
It's not okay.
We have some really weird ideas, so I don't recommend all of them for everyone.
Yeah.
And by we, she means
mostly
she.
me.
Yeah. So, I think that's just ultimately, I think how I've been able to just use my story and just be able to talk about it more, and so that we can see God at work and hopefully, tell others about how good He is and how good He can be. And I'm glad that you guys are doing this too.
Well, I know how I learn, and I have learned the most over the years just from stories. As much as I read and memorize encyclopedias and stuff, I know, like, people are what matter to God, and so people is the ultimate goal as far as, like, our lives here on earth. I've told my kids before, when I get frustrated with them playing too many video games or whatever, I'm like, you gotta be able to turn it off. You gotta be able to focus on the people in your lives, because the only thing you can take to heaven with you is people. That's literally all that matters. So you just kind of get refocused and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of what we're doing here, is just putting the focus back on the people that God loves. And I would like for you to mentor me now, because I feel like you are extremely mature, and I feel like the things that you have gone through have taught you so much, and I just want to be like you. You are now my hero, and so...
Lisa, that might be a little bit unhealthy. I'm just going to go ahead and give you that one for free.
No, it's a lot unhealthy, David. Only being a little bit facetious, though. No, I'm excited about, like, what God is doing in your life. That is extremely encouraging to see. So yeah, we are gonna have you back on. I'm sorry. So just.
I think I'll be okay.
All right, just keep that in your brain.
Yeah.
Pack that away. So check us out on the socials. We've got them all. We got a full collection.
We've got Tinder.
Yeah. What else is there?
I have several questions.
We got TikTok.
I'm on the TikToks.
We are on Reddit.
Yes.
No.
We should be. There should be a Lord Bear Me Strength subreddit for all of their questions.
What are we saying?
I don't know.
No. We need, like, the actual one.
The actual ones that we do have are the Facebook,
YouTube,
the YouTubes, Instagrams,
Can you
And
stop putting an S on everything?
no. Also the website. There's only one of those. And I think that's about it. You can check us out on any of those. And you can also email us at lordbeermestrengthpodcast@gmail.com. Do it. Do it now. Get a free sticker. For the love of everything.
I'm so proud of you.
I know.
I didn't know she knew all of that.
That's the first time I've ever plugged the socials.
Yeah. Oh, hey, yeah, definitely get a sticker. They're very nice. I like them.
High quality.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Mine has lived on my car for multiple days now without peeling off.
Yeah,
So,
that's good.
In the dead of summer,
in the dead of summer, the dog days of summer,
when we're all dead,
the vinyl's gonna melt and become
it won't
permanently
matter
one
when
with
you're
my
dead
window.
because everything's gonna burn anyway.
It's all gonna light on fire.
Okay, bye.
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 Fun times with David. Maybe don't call it that.
Getting intimate with David.
Yeah!
Call it something David's comfortable with.